Hello everyone, welcome to the Luciad 2023 product launch. Today we're bringing you exciting new features across all of our products with fabulous visuals that go with it. And at the end we have a virtual tour of our beautiful hometown Leuven, so I invite you to join us then. Before we dive in, here's a quick recap of what Luciad does. We make SDKs that bring geospatial data together in a single operational view. And for that, we have 4 SDKs, each targeting a specific development ecosystem. LuciadRIA targets browser development with TypeScript and JavaScript. LuciadCPillar targets desktop development with C# and or C++, but also Android. And there you get the modern ecosystem with Kotlin and Jetpack or Java or other things that you might want. Luciad Lightspeed is for highly capable desktop applications in Java, and Fusion is software components for building a geospatial data server for data indexing, processing, and streaming over open protocols. You can pause the slide if you want, but here's another way to look at what we are about. These are 3 Luciad pillars that I've noted down as context, operations, and customization. And let me give you an example that hopefully shows that more tangibly. This is an example that we made for counter UAV drone management. So a radar is monitoring drones flying around, and it can detect unauthorized drones. And the application can then send out a counter drone with a net to capture that drone and bring it back home. And you can clearly see contextual information, bringing the data together on a background data set, in this case, a LiDAR data set that was taken by an aerial sensor. Operational data, obviously the drone locations being tracked by the radar, but also analysis that has been made on top of that to detect whether it's unauthorized or not, and things like that. And obviously this is a very, very customized application, fulfilling detailed requirements that you cannot do with an off-the-shelf product. Here's another example in a very different market. This is Hexagon Smart Sites that was released last week at Hexagon Live. And it focuses on facility operations, for example, large railway stations, hospitals, or industry plants. Again, it embraces these 3 pillars, but builds on top of that and adds value for this specific facility operations use case. You can see a combination of datasets coming together, BIM data, point clouds, etc., but also operational data such as work permits, restricted zones, people tracking, historic analysis, etc. And finally, it keeps the idea of customization, so you can tailor this with your own workflows, your own backend datasets, and things like that. And later on, we'll talk about HXDR Startup, which also has this philosophy, but in the reality capture world. It's meant for building customized applications in the reality capture market, and we'll talk about that later. And I think it's these 3 pillars that make it so that we are highly valued within Hexagon. Here you can see the SIG product suite that is currently using Luciad inside. We were already present within Map Enterprise, MapX, and Hexagon Connect, but I've marked new products or products that are newly using Luciad this year. There's Hexagon Smart Sites that I just talked about. There's On-Call Planning and Response that have previewed their 2D, 3D map with Luciad in April and are bringing that to the market later this year. And it was very highly appreciated. Erdős Apollo is getting a major upgrade with LuciadFusion under the hood, bringing new capabilities and performance. And we'll talk about that as well in a minute. And in the power portfolio, GeoMedia and Spatial Modeler have picked up LuciadCPillar for previewing and displaying their point cloud analysis and other 3D data, and that's coming in September. If you take a step back outside of SIG, in the other divisions, Luciad is also being used more and more. HXDR in the reality capture area is a good example, and we'll discuss that as well, but also in construction, mining, and industry management divisions we are being used. I think this shows that Hexagon puts a lot of trust in the SDKs, but also that it can be used across a whole variety of markets, going from defense, aviation, smart cities, construction, mining, reality capture, etc. In fact, many modern applications are a combination of all of these things. And last week at Hexagon Live, I think this was also very prominently featured. I think Luciad was displayed in every major keynote, and it really exceeded our expectations how much attention there was on Luciad and how much the people in the audience appreciated the values that we bring to the Hexagon products, but also to them directly if they're using Hexagon directly. Here you can see a few ambience screenshots or pictures. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleagues to bring you the new features in LuciadRIA, LuciadCPillar, and LuciadFusion, starting off with the things that we did for HXDR and the Reality Cloud Studio.
Like Joris mentioned, last week, it was amazing to see the overwhelming presence of Luciad products in all the keynotes, presentations, talks, and live demo booths on the show floor. It was inspiring to see how many products have Luciad SDKs running under the hood. And one of the big ones is HXDR, which had a big release at Hexagon Live 2023. So let's talk about it. But first, what is HXDR? Well, in a nutshell, HXDR is a cloud-native platform for geospatial data at any scale. Picture HXDR as a big virtual ecosystem. And inside of this virtual ecosystem exists all kinds of processes and operations, such as user and asset management, cloud storage, collaborative functionality, metadata, as well as auto-registration and auto-meshing. This last one uses the LuciadFusion 3D Tiles processing engine to make sure complex 3D data meshes can easily be streamed to web clients. As a user, though, you can't interact directly with this ecosystem. Instead, software engineers and developers can write code, scripts, or full applications against the GraphQL API of the HXDR platform. This GraphQL API allows the creation of a rich suite of apps that interact with HXDR, both for Hexagon products as well as customer products. And today, we would like to highlight one app within this ecosystem that was just launched, and we are very proud to say it's backed by our LuciadRIA SDK for visualization. And that product is Reality Cloud Studio. Reality Cloud Studio is a web app for reality capture data visualization, collaboration, and storage. And it uses the LuciadRIA SDK under the hood to power its 3D visualization, interaction, and measurement capabilities. And this was a really fun project to work on in collaboration with the HXDR development team. And it really showcases what can be created when you leverage the power of Luciad SDKs inside a cloud environment. We're so excited, we made an ad to showcase the main features of Reality Cloud Studio, and we would like to show it off right here. Wasn't that cool? And Reality Cloud Studio is available right now as an end-user web app. But what if you wanted to make your own applications for HXDR? Well, we've got you covered there as well. As of last week, Hexagon has launched HXDR Start App, which is the best way to start developing your own custom HXDR apps. And HXDR Start App is also powered by LuciadRIA SDK under the hood. Now, the concept is very simple. We offer you a fully functional app that you can tweak, modify, or fully rewrite to your liking. So out of the box, you can do a lot of the things that you would expect from such an application, such as accessing the Hexagon content program, as well as accessing your own assets, reality capture scans, BIM models, point clouds, or other meshes. And when you have all of this, you can bring them into the application and do things that are useful, such as measurements. You can do orthographic measurements or area measurements. You can even make a cross-section and then perform measurement operations on your cross-sections inside of a 3D dataset. You can also do things like slicing through a dataset to peer into its inside or to cut away parts that aren't necessary for visualization purposes. On top of that, you can also create a scene with a geolocation feature by taking your existing assets and placing them somewhere in the world. And by doing this, you can bring them into context, build out wonderful 3D scenes, and then continue doing all the other things that you could do with the tools mentioned beforehand. So this is HXDR Start App. It's available right now. It's currently in early access, but if you want to check it out, please do get in touch with us. Now, to show off the power of Start App, we've helped develop a proof of concept application for a company called R3DA that helps facilitate the scanning, measuring, planning, and sharing of solar panel installations on rooftops. By leveraging the power of HXDR Start App, we already have a lot of tools out of the box already. This includes access to our assets in HXDR, our cross-sections, and placing objects for reference. And because HXDR Start App uses LuciadRIA under the hood, we can use the LuciadRIA SDK to make any additions we want, such as these custom controllers for placing and planning solar panels on arbitrary rooftops of scans. And then we can top it all off with these nice sun simulations. And since everything is running in the cloud, all stakeholders can see the same view, making HXDR the single source of truth. And they're all looking at this from a view that's rendered by LuciadRIA SDK. This makes for a very compelling application that is easy to use, but also very, very powerful. All right, we've been talking about HXDR and Luciad technology integrations for a while now. Let's talk about some new features in our product, starting off with LuciadFusion. One of the core new features of LuciadFusion in 2023.0 is the addition of role-based access control to your datasets. Now, LuciadFusion itself doesn't do user or role management, but instead it can use Spring to hook into the existing user and role management system of your application. Once everything is set up, you can use our LuciadFusion REST API to assign roles to specific data items. Now, the cool thing about this is that it automatically propagates these roles all the way to a service. What that means is, imagine you have a service with two products coming from two separate data items producing two separate products. Now, if my user account only has access to one of those data items, I will still see the service, but I will only see one of the products inside that service and not both. And all of these properties can be changed dynamically on the fly using the REST API. All right, let's put these newfound capabilities to good use. Let's play a game of Battleship, written entirely in the backend of LuciadFusion using the new role-based access. In the game of Battleship, there are two players and two boards. Each player is assigned a role. Player 1 has a role that it can only see ships placed in their own board, and Player 2 has a role that it can only see ships placed on their respective board. The players do not have permission to access each other's boards. Meanwhile, a server-side game is running in LuciadFusion with administrator rights to manage how hits on the board are handled. Now let's have a look what happens when we log in as Player 1. So as mentioned, when we log in to this application, we zoom into their board. We've connected to our LuciadFusion service, but because we're logged in as Player 1, we can only see the board for Player 1. We take a few shots, and we don't get the results that we want. Ideally, we want to win. So let's try to cheat. Let's switch over to a vanilla Lucy installation that has no customization to it. We connect to the same service using our Player 1 credentials. When we connect to this service, we see unfortunately, that we only have access to the layers that player 1 has access to. So when we visualize all the layers that we can, given our current role-based permissions, we're still unfortunately in the same spot as before. We can only see our own board. All right, let's switch on to LuciadFusion Studio and let's log in with an admin account. So when we switch over to LuciadFusion Studio, we can log in with our admin credentials, which we've safely secured from somewhere else. And now when we access the exact same service as before, and we access the products inside that server, because we have admin rights, we can see all of the products, including those of player 2. When we visualize the board, all of player 2 ships appear on the screen. So now we can very easily just shoot down all of his ships and win the game easily. Also, one very cool little detail here is that the game engine was written such that once a ship sinks, access rights to that ship are given to the other player. So now we have access to this ship that was just sunk by us using the player 1 credentials. Okay, that was fun. Now, some of the other new features for LuciadFusion include flexible WMS and WMTS styling. What this means is that now you can use the REST API of LuciadFusion to assign multiple styles to your data. This is commonly referred to as named styles in the Get Capabilities document of your OGC service. And it lets thin clients select from a simple list of options for styling. In the example on screen, we have defined simple name styles for day, dusk, and a variant for day that masks out land areas for maritime datasets. And finally, we have updated our support for AML, and we made sure that both in LuciadFusion and Luciad Lightspeed, we now support the latest versions. All this comes as an extension to the support for AML we already had, and it can be used to easily serve over the wire through protocols like WMS or WMTS. And one of the products that we are very happy to announce has been working behind the scenes to leverage LuciadFusion SDK is Erdas Apollo. This Hexagon product offers configurable off-the-shelf solution for managing geospatial data at an enterprise level. Apollo enables workflows for describing, styling, securing, cataloging, and publishing geospatial and non-spatial data to a central catalog. And it uses a lot of the new features we've been adding to LuciadFusion over the last few releases, including our new support for role-based access, as well as the new flexible styling system we just talked about. The new Erdas Apollo releases later this year, and we could not be more excited to see how the synergy works with its new LuciadFusion integration. Okay, that was it for LuciadFusion. I would now like to hand it over the word to Marcel, who is going to explain all about the new features in LuciadCPillar. Take it away, Marcel.
And thank you, Daniel, for this very exciting presentation. I will now present to you the new features of LuciadCPillar 2023.0. First, I will go over all the improvement we made on our elevation support. We put together this sample that is in the north of the Netherlands, in the Waddenzee, where a shipping accident occurs, and we are here to investigate such an accident. Here, it is your typical sample, with a main 3D view in the center, then on the left, a 2D view, and below it, the layer list. What you see in the middle of the 3D view is numerous boats that are navigating along AIS tracks. These boats are represented using military icon symbology. Then on the left of these boats, you see a storm coming, with in red the eye of the storm, where we really don't want ships to be in. And finally, we also added an aerial imagery on top of it, of the north of the Netherlands, as well as barometric data that represent the depth of the shipping lane along which the boat will be navigating on. On the 2D map, we see the same thing as in the 3D one, with the addition of an exist layer. The exist layer style has been set using namestyle that Daniel just mentioned. Now, if we take a closer look at the shipping lane, we see our bathymetric data. The darker the blue, the deeper is the seabed. Here, we haven't loaded any elevation layer, so let's add a wall covering elevation layer. And well, as you can see here, it doesn't add much depth. Sadly, this wall covering elevation layer is great to have to see mountains or really deep areas, but here, especially in the Netherlands, which is quite a flat area, we cannot really tell the difference. But thankfully, in LuciadCPillar 2023.0, we are now able to add multiple elevation layers, as well as layers with different resolution. Not only that, we can also add non-wall covering elevation data, which means that here we'll be able to augment our wall covering elevation by the addition of new layers. We have two layers that we will add. One bathymetric of the north of the Netherlands to give a good idea of the elevation in that general area, and one specifically for the shipping lane that we want to investigate. So let's add the first one. This file comes as a geotiff file. Yes, you heard me right. As of now, we can use geotiff elevation file in LuciadCPillar, as well as DMED and DTED data. And well, as you can see here, the darker blue indeed corresponds to deeper areas. We really augmented the wall covering elevation with this new layer. And we can even go further by adding the one, especially for the bathymetric data. Here you might not really see it, so we'll go back and forth, but if you look at the bottom of the shipping lane, you'll be able to see all the asperities in the rocks. That's it for our elevation support improvement. Now we will have a look at a new feature. We are happy to announce that we are introducing height provider. A height provider is a way to request elevation information for your elevation model. We have two kinds of height provider, model-based height provider and view-based height provider. We'll first have a look at the model-based height provider. To request the elevation from your model-based height provider, you need to pass in the location you want the elevation from, as well as the resolution you want your elevation at. To showcase this, we will here click on a boat. Underneath that boat, we will display the depths of the seabed below that boat, as well as at different steps along the AIS track the boat is following. All these values are queried on the fly. Nothing has been hard-coded. We could even let the boats navigate along those lines and see that, indeed, the values are updated in real time. While the model-based height provider needs a geographical coordinate in order to return you an elevation value, the view-based height provider requires pixel coordinates, and it will be under that pixel that elevation data will be returned. Let's have a look at the bottom of my screen. Here we see the elevation data that lies underneath my mouse. We can go to the shipping lane or to the shore or even on the horizon. While the model-based height provider allows you to query elevation information for one elevation model, the view-based height provider allows you to query elevation information from all the elevation layers that are currently visible. We will go top to bottom, and the first from your layer list, and the first one which has elevation information will be the one that returns you data. With all of these new features combined, we are now able to investigate the shipping accident. Here we have a close-up of the shipping lane with a few boats navigating on it. In green, we see geofencing information. If it's green, it's all good, but if it turns red, then it's about to go bad. We see the storm approaching. Here, two boats will be about to collide. They are in the eye of the storm, and they hit each other. One of them will leave damage, while the other one will sink at the bottom of the ocean. And we are able to investigate the shipwreck represented here with a high-resolution mesh data at the bottom of our shipping lane that we can investigate thanks to our bathymetric data. Now we will have a look at our extension for the support of irregular WMTS tileset layer. Here we have a WMTS irregular tileset divided into three levels: top, middle, and bottom level. Each layer is divided into a grid of tiles. Here the bottom layer is divided into a 3x3 grid which makes this an irregular tile set. Before 2023, it was already possible to load such tile set into CPillar, but we had the limitation that the top left corner had to be aligned. This limitation has now been lifted, meaning that as of now, LuciadCPillar is fully Odyssey WMTS compliant, and these new improvements are also available in RIA. And now, Andrew, to talk to you about RIA.
Thanks, Marcel. So let's start off with symbology encoding, the OGC standard to style data in XML so you don't have to write any code. LuciadRIA now supports 4 new custom symbology encoding functions. They're already used by third-party vendors, so adding support to RIA makes it even more interoperable. Here's an example showing the categorize function, where we map population density ranges to a fixed set of colors. You can immediately make out the sparsely populated states like Colorado or Kansas. And now you can even implement your own functions to style and filter data. Next, complex strokes are no longer limited to the surface of the planet. By popular demand, you can now apply these styles to any 3D polyline or the outline of any 3D shape. Here you can see this in action, where we draw an evacuation route winding through a factory. This works both using screen-sized and world-sized strokes. And as expected, you can interactively or programmatically create and change the geometry. It also applies to complex strokes defined in the previously mentioned symbology encoding. Next, we've added a new meaning to the term less is more. Thanks to 2 new features, you can achieve significantly higher frame rates on less powerful hardware, such as mobile phones. The new adaptive point size feature resizes points based on the locally computed density, which allows you to achieve great quality with a much lower point count. You can also put a limit on the point count so you can achieve more predictable behavior and reduce both memory and bandwidth requirements of your application. Here you can see the same point cloud shown with different amounts of points. And as you can see, even the lowest quality setting looks great. You can find more details about these recommended settings in the LuciadRIA documentation. To put the cherry on top, we've shaved half a second off LuciadRIA's startup time. Finally, let's talk about the technological ecosystems that our products take part in. For each Luciad product, we carefully evaluate both hardware and software requirements, as well as third-party dependencies. We do this on a continuous basis to help you stay secure and unlock the latest technologies. At the same time, we also want your upgrades to go as smooth as possible. That's why we provide comprehensive upgrade considerations and communicate significant changes beforehand where possible. In 2023, we're raising the OpenGL version in Luciad Lightspeed to the same level as LuciadCPillar, which should make it easier for you to find the right hardware for your Luciad Lightspeed applications. We're also dropping support for CentOS 7 in LuciadCPillar, which is rapidly approaching end of life. And for the upcoming 2024 release, the most prominent change is that after 10 years, we're finally letting go of the aging Java 8. This should allow us to leap forward and embrace new features and third-party library upgrades, such as Spring Boot 3 and Jakarta Enterprise Edition. We're already paving the way for this in the 2023 release by eliminating split packages. Dropping legacy technology and API allows us to keep up the development pace and offer you the best developer experience. And that's our ecosystems update. Back to you, Joris.
All right. Thanks, Andrew, Marcel, Daniel, for presenting, and of course the entire Luciad R&D team for making the awesome products that we have. I hope you enjoyed the showcases and the things that we presented. And if you're interested in seeing more, learning about our products, or just want to get your hands dirty, here you can find our contact information. Our development portal is the best way to learn all about our products, from API to articles to inspiring videos. The Hexagon SIG website has high-level product information and brochures. And if you want to talk about your needs, you can contact your SIG account manager, or if you're a Hexagon employee, reach out to me or anyone in the Luciad product management team. And finally, the Luciad support team is happy to help you with all your technical questions. So we're coming at the end of our presentation, and as I mentioned at the very start, let's visit our beautiful hometown Leuven in Belgium together on a virtual tour. Enjoy!